Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Football Talk. And today, guys, I am here again with another reaction video. Today, I will be reacting to the death of college football in the Northeast. Okay. I saw this just scrolling through, trying to find something to react to. And this title really got me intrigued with this one. Let me give a shout out to the creator of this right quick. 1 minute. Map Mapify, I think that's how you say it. The original video will be linked in the description down below. So if you guys are ready to hop into this, I am too. Let's get into it, baby.
Of the United States. These are all the college football programs. Look at this map of the United States. These are all the college football programs competing at the highest level of the NCAA, the Football Bowl subdivision. There's something off about it though. As we all know, college football is a cornerstone of American sports culture. Entire towns rally behind their teams, Saturday games draw tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people, and the traditions are practically sacred. But this level of commitment isn't consistent in every corner of the country. This is the Northeast, a region with one of the largest populations in the United States. It's also where gridiron football first took root, led by none other than collegiate institutions. Yet, as we can see in this map, there's a scarcity of top-level football when you consider how many people are living here, along with the sport's rich history in this region. Stadiums here don't sell out like others, most rivalries aren't commanding national attention, and the sport is far from a cultural phenomenon, at least at a collegiate level. The question is, why? It's certainly not for a lack of people or history. Sure, there are some notable programs and marquee games, but for some reason, college football is seemingly put on the back burner here, and that likely won't change anytime soon. To understand college football's relative absence in the Northeast, we need to look back at its origins and the role it played in this very region. Way back to well over a century ago, football was a Northeast-dominated sport. It took on many variations and eventually evolved into the game we know today. But thanks to the colonial colleges who regularly organized games between themselves, private universities like Harvard, Yale, and Princeton popularized the game in America. In fact, if you look up the national champions from over 100 years ago...
God damn! Hold on now. I want to read this right quick for myself and for you guys. So, 1900... Wait. So, Yale, Harvard, Pennsylvania, Lafayette. Oh, that's what... I never knew that. Pennsylvania, Yale, Princeton. Wait, so they dropped Lafayette. Oh, they dropped it. Okay, just Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Princeton, Yale, Princeton, yeah. Oh, they had two in 1880. Princeton, 78, Princeton.
You'd consistently find an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
These institutions were, and still are, culturally elite colleges. So football here wasn't just a rough and tumble game. It was a reflection of prestige played by those who came from the country's most influential families. But despite being instrumental in the sport's development, these schools represented a relatively small portion of the population, all while having a strong barrier of entry. Their exclusivity, both in admissions and athletics, made it difficult for the broader public to connect to their football programs. This stands in stark contrast to what we know college football to be today.
There goes Davis! Oh my God! Auburn's gonna win the football game!
During this time, however, education in America was changing behind the scenes, and this is all thanks to the Morrill Land Grant Act. For context, 1862 saw the Morrill Act introduced, which granted federal land to states for the purpose of establishing public universities. These institutions were tasked with providing accessible and practical education to the masses, particularly in agriculture, engineering, and military science. So over time, when new states joined the Union...
Wait a minute, what did that say? I'm sorry. This is why some schools have A&M in there. Oh. I actually never thought about that. Wow. I never knew about this act or anything like that. I don't think I've ever heard of this act, to be honest with you. Yo, look at this right here. Man, oh man. Imagine
Science.
being born this.
So over time, when new states joined the Union, whether during the post-Civil War era or through westward expansion, land-grant universities immediately became central to their identity, since these institutions were often established shortly after statehood. This meant that those living in newly formed states had an outlet for their state pride. By the late 19th century, many of these land-grant
SMU,
schools had developed
goddamn
football programs that further amplified this state pride. Suddenly, you mix in some marching bands, traditions, and weekly on-field battles between schools from other states. These institutions would go on to symbolize the shared identity of its residents, with football being the primary outlet. These schools were accessible, but not as accessible as buying tickets through SeatGeek, the sponsor of today's video. Right now, all across North America, stadiums and arenas are buzzing. While land-grant universities wriggled their way into the region, they were often overshadowed by a dense network of private institutions, which made it difficult to rapidly spread school pride to residents in the area. Meanwhile, in regions like the Midwest and the South, public universities were relatively free to carve out their identities without any competition. Plus, the fragmented nature of higher education in the Northeast also played a significant role. Many public universities in the region developed as part of sprawling state systems, with multiple campuses serving different areas. For instance, the State University of New York is made up of over 60 institutions. This makes it challenging for any one campus to dominate any particular region's sports culture. Lacking a single home base contrasts sharply with other state schools that primarily had one campus to take in their vast network of students and alumni. And to make matters even worse for college football in this area, the elite universities that once dominated the sport eventually shifted their focus away from athletics. Prioritizing academics above all else, these high-end institutions chose not to compete with the rising power of large state universities that built their identities around athletic excellence. But wait, just because college football grew beyond the region in which it was developed, that doesn't mean that football as a whole is disregarded here. After all, there are well over 50 million people living in this corner of the country, plenty of whom are avid football fans. In fact, this population density is a significant reason why collegiate football is pushed to the wayside here. Unlike the sprawling towns and relatively less populated areas like the Rust Belt, the South, the Midwest, and beyond, the Northeast is often defined by the cluster of its major cities. For example, Boston's storied legacy with the Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, and later the Patriots has long made pro teams the heartbeat of its sports culture. And in New York, the sheer number of franchises across every major league offers fans an abundance of options. This pattern extends across the region. Throughout this corridor, nearly every major city boasts representation in all four major sports leagues. Many of these cities were among the first to host pro teams during the formative years of these leagues, which gave fans a reliable, high-level product that grew alongside the leagues themselves. As professional sports gained national prominence, the loyalty these franchises received cemented them as the primary focus of the region's sports culture. Meanwhile, for colleges, this left little room for any competition. Sure, Rutgers and Syracuse have notable programs. The annual Army-Navy game is one to mark.
The Syracuse Stadium is one of my favorite stadiums to watch on TV. I don't know. It just feels... I think it's because it's a closed-in one, and most of the ones that you see are obviously open like this on your screen. But it just seems small but unique, like the Syracuse football field, like their whole stadium. I don't know. I would love to visit that one day.
Mark of the calendar, and depending on if you lump them into the region, Penn State has quite a strong reputation. But for the most part, professional teams took over in this region. This has the opposite effect in parts of the country that are dominated by college sports.
I mean, yeah, it is dominated by the NFL.
Some of the biggest football programs in the country have been able to develop into such a powerhouse because the metro areas weren't big enough to attract a major professional franchise of their own. Or alternatively, these college programs established themselves long before there was any potential for a pro franchise to arrive. So sports leagues wouldn't even attempt to get involved in cities that were already obsessed with their local school's athletics program. But hold on. It's not like college sports are a forgotten entity altogether in these states. After all, the Frozen Four routinely features teams from Massachusetts, while Villanova,
hockey.
Syracuse, and UConn are March Madness staples. Knowing that though, this wide range of sporting success plays a major part in what's going against college football. Simply put, there's far too many sports to choose from. In a region littered with cities that experience all four seasons, shaped by locals, transplants, and immigrants from various cultures, loyalties often skew toward media-dominant professional teams or hometown favorites. This dilutes the cultural pull of any one single team, let alone college football. People certainly care about that level of gridiron, but it doesn't take over on Saturdays in the same way that you would find in other places that know how to pull off a good tailgate. I could be wrong about that though, so if you're from the Northeast, leave a comment below indicating which team you support, whether they're professional or at a college level. Anyways, the city lifestyle that millions here are exposed to certainly doesn't help either. Saturdays are often seen as a time for social gatherings or enjoying the vibrant city lifestyle. All of this is prioritized instead of dedicating the entire day to football. In Texas, you'll see towns come together even for high school football on Friday evenings. But in these states up here, it's only NFL Sundays that have the ability to lure people to the couch or the stadium with great effect. But could any of this change?
I do want to say something about that. He's right, but kind of, sort of. Guys, I'm from North Carolina, so Friday nights, a large, like, depending on where you live, like if you from a small town, a small area, Friday nights is a big thing for like the sports. I say the most people you will see is during basketball season because it's indoor, and plus they have is junior varsity girls and varsity. Some schools might not have junior varsity, but those are the three. Football is second. Baseball, it's a lot of parents. Baseball, you will see a lot of parents. They don't really have games though like that on Fridays. Like it's not like a big deal, I guess you could say. But like I said, I sort of agree with what he just said, but it all depends on where you from. Like a big city, unless like it's your brother or sister or somebody in your family that you're supporting, you're not really gonna. It's not gonna be a whole lot of people for those games, unless it's like senior night. That's the only other time you will see like a bunch of people which like there for a game. But I agree with most of what he said.
Change? Will there ever be a day that we see a shift in the Northeast sporting culture? If we're being honest, the odds are slim. One of the biggest hurdles lies in the high school pipeline. For football to thrive in college, it needs a steady stream of local talent to build competitive programs, and that's something the Northeast struggles with. While states like Texas, Florida, and Georgia churn out top prospects year after year,
That is true.
high school football in
Basketball
the Northeast hasn't kept pace. There
But
aren't nearly
football,
as many
definitely,
top
that's
recruits coming from the area, and the best players from the region often leave for powerhouse programs in the Midwest or the South, where they're more likely to gain national exposure and develop under systems built to funnel players into the NFL. This talent drain creates a vicious cycle. Without a strong local talent pool, Northeast college programs struggle to compete on the national stage. And without successful programs to rally around, young athletes in the region are less likely to see football as a viable path. In contrast, other sports like basketball and soccer continue to grow in popularity. This will only divide attention and resources even further. Lastly, the growing awareness around player safety is also important to note, as concerns about concussions and long-term health risks have led to declining participation in youth football across the country.
Oh wow.
This trend is especially pronounced in urban and suburban areas that you see dominating the
I
region.
could definitely see
Parents
that.
are becoming skeptical of the sport's violent nature and are more likely to steer their children towards safer athletic
Especially like
alternatives.
clips that you might
Given
see
these
on
challenges,
Instagram and
it's hard
stuff.
to imagine a seismic shift in the region's relationship with college football. The history, the culture, the professional sports dominance, the lack of local talent, and now the health concerns, these factors create a perfect storm that limits college football's potential for growth. Now, obviously, there will always be a demand for college football. People will still root for their alma mater, and even more will continue to love everything the Power 4 conferences have to offer. But in this neck of the woods, there's far too much going on for all eyes to be fixated on one specific level of football. And if you want to keep up with everything going on in the big picture of sports, then I highly recommend subscribing to this channel and signing up to my newsletter, Sport Vista.
Okay. I totally agree with pretty much everything he said except for what I just talked about. Let me give my insight a little bit. Where I'm from is definitely a basketball. I mean, I'm from North Carolina, so it's definitely basketball. Second, I don't know. Cause basketball is like right here, like all the way up here. Second, maybe foot. I don't know. Might not even be foot. Might be soccer. To be honest with you, it might be soccer. But the fact that it's so many things that go on, especially on the weekend, and here we have the Carolina Panthers, the you got and then oh, college basketball. That's like really, I mean, that's the biggest. So for football to become like as it's seen, like say in Nebraska, at Nebraska, Wisconsin, like for that to happen, it would definitely need to be like a bigger eyes on football, on high school football. Also, you gotta throw the money. I'm for real. You gotta throw the money. Like you gotta like throw so much money that you know that's like it's a risk, but the reward might be there. You gotta take that risk because you gotta remember if you're in high school and you're getting these offers from LSU, Alabama, what's some other ones? Florida. These big time names, they're all throwing money at them. For you to separate yourself and allow them and be like, you know what, I want them to stay home, you gotta throw a ridiculous bag. Like a number that professionals might not be making type of bag. And that's tough to do. The education thing, that's that's stamp. But now, also, you gotta have things for them to do outside of sports. Like the community around your college has to be like something where they will want to hang out. Like when school is over and stuff like that, like it's gotta be a place they want to hang out on weekends when maybe they ain't got nothing to do, or they're just they just had a game. I want to go out, hang out with my friends. It's gotta be something like that for to entice somebody that might be thinking about going to Florida or this and that or other, so it's a lot that will have to change. Do I see it? Nah, I don't. I'm gonna be honest with you, I really don't. I don't see it. Cause like I said, basketball, college basketball in general, here, boy, it is huge. Like it's definitely like way up here compared to any other sport that I've seen personally. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if you have a different opinion, if you are from say the New York or North Carolina or any of these areas around here. Love you guys. See you guys in the next one.